Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, August 4th, and I want to talk about the reason that there's no political solution. I often say that, and I often explain in different ways. And I'm going to explain it in a totally different way this time. But there's usually never a political solution, like the way people think it is. But when there is, it isn't like it is now, right? I'm like kind of wiped out. Like I'm taking these antibiotics, and I haven't taken antibiotics in like 7 years. My wife and I were talking about. I had an operation, and before my wife and I got together in 2017, and so I must have had antibiotics then. I had to go on OxyContin or one of those fucking things, right? It was brutal. People who were around then know like it was really negatively affecting me. I had physical side effects and spiritual side effects. It was a nightmare. But since then, I don't think I've been on any antibiotics. My mom was allergic to them. She was on them all the time. And she had a very sensitive system. My mom would go to a restaurant, order a piece of chicken cooked in butter with no spices. Like she told me that she was allergic to bay leaves. And I'm like, the essence of bay leaves, like bay leaves is almost like a homeopathy kind of spice where you boil it. Like a bay leaf is just something you throw in soup and you don't know if it does anything. It's just because the recipe says you should do it. Like, I don't know how many people can taste a bay leaf. But but anyways, like I wake up and I feel good and I'm energized, and I think I got maybe a handle on this infection thing, this tooth infection thing. We'll see. I'm doing something that I've used before and not orally, and it seems to be working in a combination of other things. Of course, the antibiotics are kicking in, and I'm still got another day or two of those. But if there's a full recovery and it shows up in the X-rays, I will do a video about how it worked. You know what I did and how it worked. I'll probably put it on Spotify. But anyways, feeling wiped out. But let's get into the main subject here. So the first thing to know about is politics isn't about solutions, right? Politics is never about solutions. A democracy is not about solutions and fixing things and making society better. It's a system of control, right? Because what you have to do is control your citizens. My wife and I just completed season 2 of Silo. And it's just a really good show. I know there's these Silo books series that I am interested in. One of my first Facebook friends was this guy. I don't remember his name, but it's Michael, I think his first name is. And he was one of these kind of, people that they wear head coverings, Christian, whatever, like an Amish. But he had written and he wasn't Amish, but he was, Amish adjacent. Like his wife wouldn't, these people who wear head coverings, the women, these Christians, he lived out in Texas somewhere. Like he's the guy who said that in the future, a man's wealth will be measured by the size of his junk pile. And so this guy wrote, I guess the Silo series is the guy who writes the books allows people to use his universe and write like books about the Silo from different perspectives. And this guy did it from the Amish perspective. And I know that the guy who wrote the books really loved his book. I read a little bit. I didn't like it, but anyway. So I have some association with the series. I didn't read any of the books. But it's a good example of how you control things. There's a guy who controls the Silo. I'm not really going to do much spoiler alert stuff here for those of you who haven't seen it. It's on Apple TV. They control the Silo, but in a devious way. And you can see just from the way that people act, they're not getting this full story. They're not getting any of the story, really, most of the story. The people have been living in a silo for like 300 years, which is, unrealistic, Like I was saying to my wife, where'd they store all the light bulbs, right? Like they're not manufacturing new things. And, they're trying to keep the people from going outside where there's an apocalyptic post-nuclear war type of situation out there. And they're a controlling force, and there's maybe some kind of AI program controlling the whole thing. There's a whole thing, right? It's very similar to what's going on here. But the reality of it is they are protecting people from themselves. because people will rise up, and they do it every 20 years or so. There's some kind of rebellion, and it always results in, an attempt for people to go outside and kill themselves, and, or just wreck what's going on there, right? Because people will do that. And so you have a situation where in a modern type of civilization, where you have big cities and you have lots of people living unnatural lives, and there's mental illness, there is, we're not designed to live in colonies, and we have a colony society. You have a situation where you're just trying to control crazy people from doing self-destructive crazy shit. And when you have overpopulation, people are compelled to do crazy, stupid shit, right? They are. That's what people are going to do, because when you're overpopulation in any species, one of the symptoms is self-destruction. You're self-destructive, you're suicidal. And so those are all conditions that go along with this kind of society where people are living unnaturally. And in a village, you still get the occasional deviant personality. You get the creep, you get the fucking, even everyone else is happy, the one person can't be happy, the person can't do hard work, the person, is looking for shortcuts, the person looking to control other people, person with deviant fantasies and deviant type of, maybe multiple people. You have 300-400 people living in a village, 1,000, 10,000 even, small village, in a rural area. And you're going to get, 10% of the population, they're just going to be pieces of shit that are, need to be handled and dealt with, because they can bring down the whole fucking thing, right? You're always going to have those kind of personalities. And so your government isn't about making the place better, making it fair, any of these types of things. Moving forward, it's never about picking good leaders. It's about having a system to control the people from doing crazy fucking shit, right? From doing self-destructive things and destroying the system. And whether you have capitalism or you have communism, it's any number of isms, any kind of structured system, this is always going to be the problem. There's always going to be the problem with human beings being, not just the ones that are deviant, but a lot of stupidity, like people who are just not capable of understanding the bigger picture. There's 60% of the people aren't capable of abstract thought, and therefore don't have any critical thinking skills. And so those people are always going to be an issue, right? Like, how much information do you give them? I mean, you see this in every movie, like an E.T. movie or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or any of these types of, apocalyptic movie. Not so much in that movie Armageddon where a meteor is hitting the Earth, but in every movie where there's going to be a extinction level event, the people at the top, the system, are not going to tell the ordinary people, because they'll flip the fuck out. And, where's an example of this is COVID. Like, what happened in COVID? Like, COVID was not that bad. And, 2 days into COVID, you went to the grocery store, there's no canned food and no toilet paper. And there was no money in the banks. We went to our bank to take out some money, and they were like, you can only take out a little bit because we're out of money. I'm like, oh, that's not good, right? And if that became a thing, which it didn't, you could have had an economic collapse just from that, because people lose their shit and they immediately go and they do panic stuff. Like, they have all this time. You could be stocking up on toilet paper and canned foods and cash and whatever it is right now. You could be stocking up on things right now. Water, all these things. But, they wait till like there's some, devastating announcement, and then they don't do it in an organized fashion. When that there was a gas shortage caused by the refinery being hacked. Remember, that was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was like right at the end of COVID, and in the southern part of the country, North Carolina was part of this. My wife and I were traveling. There was no gas in the gas stations. Like, lots of them were closed. And I went to a gas station, and there's a dude in front of me. He's got the cheapest fucking plastic bags, like those white plastic bags that you can see through. And I could see that he had bags full of gas. He had just filled his car with bags full of gas. I mean, his whole like little hatchback. And he was just filling it full of gas, And I was like, how are you going to get that gas into your car? Like, you might, I mean. So this is what people will do. People will not make good decisions. You can't tell everybody everything. They can't handle it. They can't understand it. And I can speak from experience that probably nobody really understands the majority of my videos. 100% of what I'm saying. I mean, some of it's based in spiritual experience and some things. But I'm not talking about just the more complex things. It's just people can't communicate, to other people exactly what they're saying and who they are. Oftentimes people don't even know who they are personally. And, they're denying things or hiding things from themselves, so that makes it even more complex. But you see this all the time where people are like, I thought I knew this person, but I really didn't. Because people have things inside of them that they don't know about or can't understand. Or, even if you tell people over and over again, look at Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump has been telling people his whole life that he's a narcissistic piece of shit grifter. And there is 20% of the population that will never be able to hear that or see it. And so there's a people problem. And that's what governments are about, dealing with the anger, the hatred, the perversion of the people. It's what governments are supposed to do. It's not about any of those things. Just like schools aren't about educating you. Schools are about keeping kids, education's a side product. I mean, how many people really get educated from school? You learn things. I mean, I guess we get somewhat educated. I've learned math, and I was able to learn to read and things like this through the educational process. But also because I wanted to read, and I went to the library, and I had encyclopedias at home, and I read books that were way above my reading level, and I learned to read at a high reading level because I was into it. So there has to be some self-effort. But, everyone learns to read and write, so there's some basic things, right? But, the system is one that they want to break up the family. They want moms and dads to work. I mean, that's been well known for quite some time when the feminist movement came in. So they couldn't do that without having some sort of daycare system. They want to indoctrinate the kids. That's why you pledge allegiance to the flag, and you get these historical facts and these things that they put in there. It's a system of indoctrination. You see it all the time, where there's controversial things being taught that are, just like what happened under the Biden administration with this new gender agenda, where they started teaching, the pronoun stuff or whatever, just changing everything that we learned when we were kids. The indoctrination we got changed to something different, right? And so it's about all those different things. And education is there. They have to have some education to call it an educational system, but it's about other things first and foremost, right? And it's about training you to be a cog in the wheel and to accept things and be socialized. And so there are a lot of things that go on in school that have nothing to do with education. It has to do with the system of power and control. The power and control system controls all these things, including your education. There's an indoctrination process. And you see this in 1984, more so in The Brave New World and these dystopian books, that has to be a part of it, right? The indoctrination of children. So what you have is a control system, right? There's various forms of counseling models, psychological models. I went to a kind of a good school as a New Age liberal school in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that had an art therapy program and a counseling program. And most people don't know there's different ideas about how a human being works psychologically and how you heal them and affect them. There's these different models. Of course, people know about Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalytic model, which is not, nobody really does, almost nobody does that anymore because it's so fucked. Then there was Carl Jung, who was, a little bit better, was more spiritual. And then there was these other models. And then there was this guy, B.F. Skinner, and these other people, the Pavlov, like Pavlov's dog, which is about behavior management, right? It's called behaviorism. And it's just about rewards and punishment, right? And so they reward behaviors that you want to have people continue, and you extinguish the behaviors by punishing those behaviors, right? Like every parent employs a behavioral management system, but you go to any counseling, like a treatment center, and you go to any school in the country, they have a behavior management system based in behaviorism, right? Pavlov's dog, where it would ring a bell and condition the dog to think every time the bell rang, it was getting fed. And then when they would measure the saliva, dogs drool when they're going to when they're going to eat. when they rang the bell. And it would produce the same amount of saliva as putting a dish of food in front of it, right? Because it thought it was going to eat, and so its body reacted to that because it was conditioned to the bell. And so they've done this where they condition you. I mean, even that, they ring bells and you get up and you walk out of your class, right? All these things. This is behavior management. And it's the lowest level of psychological understanding where you are rewarded for the things they want you to do and you're punished for the things they don't want you to do. And every system has those kind of controls in it. So that's a big part of our government is a behavior management system. That's why we have laws and law enforcement and punishments and also social punishments, right? Canceling people. You say a certain thing and they condition people to go after you and so that you don't say those things anymore. And so there's freedom of speech, but not if you're going to get hammered on the internet and out your peers and be ostracized and canceled. And they set examples of people, like they cancel people, they destroy people, so that, this is a system of control, right? And so that's what government's about. So governments are never about solving these other issues and problems. These problems oftentimes are things that, are problems they've created, like a social security system, paying social security, which they knew wasn't sustainable. So down the road, they're going to have to take that away from you. So it's something to, look, when you retire, we're going to pay you money and you'll be able to live and do, you no longer have to do a slave job and you can retire in peace, go play golf, do whatever. But, they know and at some point that ain't going to hold up, right? So, these things that they do to keep you controlled in one generation are things that are going to fall apart in a future generation, right? So it's all about control. It's not about, we love you guys and we want to treat you guys good or these types of things. We want to make you guys happy. Because happy people aren't necessarily controllable. Like, just because you're happy doesn't mean, you're not going to rebel, but that doesn't mean you're going to do what the people want. Like, they have to break you a little bit. They have to be a little bit depressed. You have to be a little bit like, the life force kick the shit out of you. Like, they got to kick the shit out of you a little bit, right? Because happy people will, they have these feelings and they want to, they want to grow and develop and learn and, become everything that they can become, right? You want to, evolve in some way. Like, you have some hope and, you have like, positive energy. And so happiness isn't the goal because that's not something that leads to them to be able to control you. They have to break you a little bit. So, that's the system. So this is the part that I haven't talked about so much, about the system and then leadership and the way leadership is picked and the way that you find a leader. The appropriate leader, the best leader that you would have is somebody who is connected to the divine in such a way. They have to have the proper qualities of leadership. And, again, it's something that you have to just be in some ways born to and then also work on. The right circumstances have to unfold for you to have these various leadership qualities. And then you have to embrace divinity in its, raw nature and do whatever God wants you to do. And some of those things are going to be very unpopular with everybody else. So they have to trust you almost explicitly. Implicitly, explicitly, I don't know. One of those two. Implicitly. And you have to be trusted in such a way. The leader has to be trusted, and also you have to be trustworthy when you are not doing things to benefit yourself. You're not doing things to pander to the people, which is what politicians do. You're doing things that God wants you to do. But our current society, if you embraced what God wanted you to do, if you embraced your higher nature, your character qualities, you would do things that would inevitably and quickly lead to the collapse of our civilization and society, right? So right now our society, our culture, our governments are going against God's will, exploiting God's system and made an abomination, demonic. Being a demon is willfully going against God's will. It's your egos run amok. And people, you think about demons, the way demons are portrayed in movies and TV shows, it's silly. It's not like you have horns or any of these other kind of bullshit stuff, or you just are angry or hateful or evil. You could actually be happy and pleasant to be around and a good personality. But you have to know that God wants you to do one thing and you do the opposite. And that's almost everybody. Like, on some level, people know what God wants them to do, what their soul wants them to do. And whether they think about it that way or acknowledge it, they're going against God's will and doing something else. And then as a leader, you're doing things to keep a civilization that's demonic going. And so you're thwarting God's will. So the leaders that they put in positions of power, whether they're elected or not, whether it's organic or not, they have to be people that are willing to do things to make a demonic system that should have already collapsed survive a little bit longer. But in terms of selecting a good leader, you have to have a system in place where everybody acknowledges, they have to see it, right? Pretty much everybody has to see it. It can't be just, oh, I told you so, or just trust me. Everyone has to get it, that this person is the person that's best suited to lead the tribe or the, whatever, the village, whatever it is. On a small level. It's always got to be a more small scale level. This person has been prepared and has worked to cultivate their divine relationship, their relationship with God, and they have the proper skills to read God's will, read the spiritual path, and follow the spiritual path of the tribe, and then able to pass that down to somebody else. And that's where you also have an issue, right? How do you transfer leadership? How do you realize when your time is up and you transfer it to somebody else and prepare and groom that person to do the good leadership, to do and not just maybe one person, many people. Maybe you have like a leader and you have a shaman and you have, various components there. You have if the leader is a man, which in many cases it is, then the man's wife has to also be, conducive to creating good leadership qualities and, an influence, a counselor to the husband that's the leader. I mean, you have to have a family, elders, you have to have these people in place, right? There's a structure of leadership and a structure of feedback and various people who can, delegate some of the responsibility of reading what needs to be understood and, being able to read God's, the divine plan and to read what's going on with the people. And in the Sahajmark system that I do, the meditation that I do, there was 2 successful transfers of leadership, of mastery, which was, I don't think, ever done like this before. I mean, maybe in small circumstances, ancient times. And there was a 3rd attempt that was a failure. So the way the Sahajmark system works is that there's a divine transmission that the master and these people called preceptors, I did preceptor works before, and now I'm doing it in terms of what I do with the Gratefullness meditation, where you act as a conduit for this divine transmission to flow through you, and also you clean people's hearts and clean everything that blocks their spiritual path. And there is always some talented people. There's been 2 that there's been a master of the system. And then, as time goes by, somebody appears that's a good disciple. They had past lives with the current master of the system. And the master does more spiritual work on them, cleans them on a deeper level, and charges their spiritual points and trains them how to use the system. And spends a lot of time with the person, and then ultimately transmits their soul, their spiritual condition, onto their disciple, which is, by far the best way to do something like that, where they're actually merging into the disciple. But their soul is now, connected to this other person, like the essence. And so the essence of what they call the master was kept alive, which I benefited from because I only knew the 3rd master of the system, and it clearly was just unique and special person, just a person operating on a different level. And all these spiritual traditions wish they could do that, right? Because transmission wasn't something, it was used in other ancient forms and, a little bit differently than it's used in Sahajmark, right? But it's the best way because, when you have a great leader and that leader can transmit back to their next successor everything that they know, everything that they became. It's more about becoming something than knowing something. And if you could have that, like, in sports where the best player is the best player, one of the best players is retiring, and there's new, superstars coming up, and they could transmit, like a teacher being able to transmit to the pupil the actual essence of the knowledge, like transmit in a way that, like uploading or downloading a computer, but on a spiritual level. And then the essence of the soul, like all these religious traditions, they had hoped that Jesus merged with Peter, and these popes are all supposed to be the embodiment of this divinity. Also, the Queen and King of England, now the King, they carry a scepter and an orb, that they're God's representative on earth as they run this religion, that they're the, they're religious figures, but also fucking monarchs, which is like bullshit stuff, right? I mean, that would be a rare case where someone would be so disciplined that they could have the power, the political power and influence of as a king, but also would be ahead of the religious, spiritual, aspect of a country to do both things. Like you need, it's hard to do both. And so the second master of the system, Babaji, was traveling in Denmark. They were from India, with his successor, Charji, the guy I knew. And Babaji said, I want to give you a sitting. They're sitting in the terminal of the airport. You sit across from the person about 5 feet. And Babaji transmitted to him for a minute and 40 seconds. And Charji was like, what the hell was that? And he goes, I just because he knew it was something special. He didn't say hell, but that was, and he said, well, that's my condition. I've transmitted my spiritual essence into your condition, and now you're my successor. And he died 10 years after that, but he was never the same physically. So it's a kind of a unique system, right? But even in that, the fourth master of the system is a piece of shit, right? The Daji is. And so they had this great divine system, and, it was there's ways that all of us who do the practice have benefited from the cleaning and transmission. But people are so corruptible, and this guy Daji is so fucking stupid. I mean, it's hard to imagine his epic failure. It's just hard to explain it, but it's like astounding, given all the resources at his disposal and all the spiritual work that was done on him. I was there in India when he was being made the successor for 3 years. I was there, and he just 2 years, and then his first year as master, and he just fucking didn't take, right? And so that's the flawed nature, because in other systems we vote for leadership, and you expect a bunch of dumb fucks who are, many of them don't have the ability for abstract thought and can be manipulated by political promises and, whatever kind of devious political theater and strategy and, whatever kind of manipulation that's imposed upon them. Like they lose their way for obvious reasons, everything that I've just said, and in other ways, that it's not a good system. People can't pick their leader. And then you can't have the richest people pick the leader, which is also the case, because that's more the case than the actual, the fact that we have a democracy. And so, it doesn't matter whether you have capitalism or communism. It doesn't matter, how you pick your leader. Like there just has to be a collective understanding why we need a society and what we're supposed to be doing with our lives. And when everyone's convinced that their lives are their own to enjoy and indulge, and they don't owe anything to God, like we're all, in a sense, slaves to God, and we don't want to admit it. We're all part of the process, and we all have to sacrifice our own desires for the greater good. People have lost that way, and so it doesn't matter, what kind of system you have or how great it is or how efficient it is. As long as people suck, you're going to have shitty leadership and shitty government, and it's going to be about controlling you and not about moving forward collectively and individually on your spiritual path and doing what God wants you to do. To be a productive part of the ecosystem. Like right now, we're a parasite, we're a cancer, human beings on the planet Earth and the universe, because we're all doing our ego's bidding. We've become demonic to whatever level we've become demonic, which is, again, going against God's will and your ego running amok and doing whatever the fuck it wants, irregardless of any sense of duty or any sense of obligation to the divine creator and our soul to find out what we're supposed to be doing and doing it, even if it's something unpleasant. And when you try to tell people, anything about this, even hint about it, they react in a fucking, either they get hostile or they get, they go into a funk, or they go into a state of denial because they've gotten these safeguards so they can't be told the truth and see the truth, and they're not going to let go of the reins. The ego is not going to let go of the reins of the person that's hijacked away from the soul. And so that's why there's no political solution, because it has to come from, first and foremost, the people have to generate enough of a connection with the divine within them and have to be able to communicate with God and see the greater purpose and embrace their soul's path. And to do that, they have to embrace, some sort of spiritual practice. And then when they do that, then they can have proper leadership, because, those kind of people deserve a better leader, and the best amongst them will stand out, and they will be able to see it without jealousy, without any sense of, why are you the leader, or maybe I'd be a better leader, or why can't I do it, or any of these things. You'd find the best person, and you'd say, yeah, you're better, you're the best person for the job, and we'll all trust you. And you collectively just know who that is, because you'd have a connection to God, and God would show you. But until that is the case, we're going to have shitty governments and shitty people and shitty everything, because, it's an ego-driven system. And the only thing that you can do once you have an ego-driven system is try to prevent what's the inevitable destruction of that system, because of the fact that it goes against God's will. That something that is an abomination cannot last. So, everything that you have and you see before you is people scrambling to keep a demonic system going. And whether you're an individual person in this, or you're a supposed leader, or whatever it is, that's what this is about, right? This is what's happening. This is what's up. So, anyways, I haven't really talked about those terms before. And so, let me wrap this one up here. Okay. There's a couple of things I want to show you that's going to cover the same topic. So today is Tuesday. Is it the 6th? It's the 5th of June. Of August. Wow. I said wow because that's 2 months off. Like, it'd be understandable if I said July, but maybe not understandable, but I know it's August. Anyways, I always wake up a little bit groggy. So Monday, over the weekend, it would seem like the Epstein thing died a little bit. And I get it, the weekend news, nobody watches the weekend news and whatever. But come Monday, the victims are out, right? The former Epstein victims. And they're hammering Trump here. We got a couple of reports. And it's an interesting dynamic. Let's watch this play out a little bit.
Jeffrey Epstein's victims speaking out tonight, one of them accusing the DOJ of protecting quote-unquote wealthy men, and another one demanding all of the Epstein files be released. Paula Reed is out front. And Paula, what more are these victims saying tonight? They're now choosing to speak out.
Yeah, Erin, remarkable statements tonight from two of Epstein's victims. They are weighing in on the Justice Department's request to release grand jury transcripts. Now, notably, neither of these victims opposes releasing this material, but what they're asking for is to make sure that victims are protected. They write, quote, "Why not be completely transparent? Show us all the files with only the necessary redactions. Be done with it and allow us/me to heal." Now, they're also criticizing the government for what they say is a lack of respect shown to victims, writing, quote, "I feel like the DOJ's and FBI's priority is protecting the third party, the wealthy men, by focusing on scrubbing their names off of files of which the victims know who they are." They directly called out President Trump here, alleging that he was using thousands of agents to protect his identity and those of other wealthy, high-profile individuals. They also took aim at the current Justice Department, saying that it appears that it is more interested in talking with Ghislaine Maxwell.
So here's the thing. It'd be interesting how this plays out, because the dumb fuck Trumpers never really cared about the victims. The imaginary idea of the victims, right? And if the victims turn out to be liberal, now that the liberal media is covering this too, it's something Trump can turn, because all of a sudden the liberal media cares about this. And these guys don't care about the victims either. Nobody does, right? And, it's all about what the victims say. If the victims say Trump, sure, these guys care about the victims. Right? And the victims say something else. If they say Clinton, then the dumb fuck Trumpers, and Trump cares about it, right? It's just, whose name is being used. And Trump is an anti-victim person. If you think Trump is in it for the little guy, Trump is always there for his rich buddies, and he's anti-women, anti-victim. He's shown this his whole life. If you look into Trump's, knowing Trump from just the little bit of news I watched over the years, Like, I knew this long ago before Stormy Daniels came into view of the public. I knew he cheated on his wife. I knew he was an anti-Native American because, he made fun of and mocked the Native Americans, say they don't look like Indians to me, because his casino didn't have the advantages that the Native American casino, and they were his competition. And Trump has always mocked victims and always been on the side of the abuser. Remember, he was describing Paula Jones. I showed you this in a video like 5 videos ago, where he said Paula Jones is a disaster, a nightmare, whatever he said, derogatory things about her. She accused Bill Clinton of rape, right? So, and he was like, he should have taken the fifth and like given him rich guy advice over the stuff with Monica Lewinsky and all these other people. He's mocking Linda Tripp, that, really nasty looking woman who was somehow became a famous person when the Monica Lewinsky stuff happened. And Trump is always on the side because Trump is always one of those people who's being accused. And he uses women and uses young girls and thinks of them like slave girls. Like, that's how he views them. That's how he and Epstein, that's why he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. There's no way he didn't. They were friends for 20 years. The only person Jeffrey Epstein was closer to than he was to Trump was Ghislaine. So she was his number one. She was the one who was most involved. And then Trump. Trump was his next closest person. He didn't talk to his brother for 7 years. But him and Trump were hanging out like a lot. And they were very similar. And they had similar amounts of money, similar attitude, all these things. And so, this is who Trump is. Trump isn't a pro-victim person. He's a pro-victimizer. He's a pro, the poor person getting hurt by the big company. He's on the big company. If there's poor people's land or animals, even like anything like that, anything that needs to be exploited, environmental issues, Trump's on the side of the company. He's on the side of the rich, the powerful, the exploiter, the fucking rapist, right? These rich people who are like this. And so that's what Trump is about. He's never been, what victims have he stood up for? And so all these women who accused him of him, he treats them horribly, right? All these women who accused him of things, and they have, connections with him. Isn't like they're just crazy people. And, this clearly he has had this tendency. And so it depends on what the Trumpers do here, because at some point they realize, well, what are our other options? And if the liberal media is covering this, then it must be bad, because Trump's programmed them to say that everything they make up is a lie about him, and it's almost all true, because he's done a lot of bad shit. And so, this thing isn't going away now that the victims are speaking out. And both sides are using the victims. The liberal media is now using the victims to push their, let's get Trump stuff. The victims themselves want everything released, right? All these things. They know what's happened. They know who did what to them and what happened, right? And then the Republicans are saying, well, we need to protect the victims. But they're just, editing out, blocking out names like Trump's name and things like this. And no one's going to want that shit, right? Trump's name being blocked out. But, Trump can't release these things. And so, the victims are, these guys are saying all the time, just because your name's on the list doesn't mean you're guilty. Like, the liberals are saying that because that's what they've been protecting them as well, everyone who's on the list. If you associate yourself with Jeffrey Epstein, you're a piece of shit person who's involved with that group of people. You're not a good person. These are people who are, exploiting and cheating other people out of their money. These are all wealthy, rich people that want to help. Jeffrey Epstein and his group of people aren't the only fucking pieces of shit that are ultra wealthy. They're all these upward climbers. These people seek money and power in a very corrupt system. They all are guilty of something, right? They're all fucking doing bad shit. Maybe not crimes, but certainly moral and ethical issues. And so there's no reason to protect anybody. They might not be pedos. A lot of them aren't, but they're complicit. They know what's going on in their world. And they should at least, speak up about it, say this was fucked up, this whole, you think it's great when you get rich, but when you get rich, you turn into a deviant person. Rich and powerful. You get these deviant tendencies.
a quote, convicted imprisoned sex trafficker than in speaking with victims. Now here, the judge is weighing whether to release these transcripts. Even the Justice Department has acknowledged there wasn't a lot of evidence presented to this grand jury. It heard from 2 witnesses. So even if the judge decides to make the unusual decision to release this material, which is by default confidential, it is unlikely to quell the calls for more transparency, because most of the information is with the Attorney General, is with the Justice Department.
So, if you're just a little bit of critical thinking skills, if you have a little bit of, consciousness where you can, see people for what they are. Like some people are better, at reading other people and just understanding other people. Like it's one of the most difficult things is to understand what goes on inside a human being, including yourself. Like people just don't know why they do what they do. You talk to any addict, gambling addict, and, people with compulsive behaviors, people with OCD, they go for years of therapy trying to unpack like why they have to wash their hands so much, or, why they gamble, or why they can't stop these compulsions. Even when they know it destroys relationships, like it costs them jobs. With compulsive behaviors that are so strong in them that they get fired, or their wife divorces them, or their husband leaves them, or whatever. Drives people away. And, like lots of these different things. That's just one example. Like when you have fear and panic attacks, why is that? Like, fear is a natural thing, but why are these weird things of, certain things that you have panic attacks over? Phobias. Like people like try to find out what happened to them as a child, any number of things. And people don't know what's going on. Like, why can't they, do certain things and, tendencies? Like, why can't we just, overcome our lower tendencies that we know that they're hurting us? Why do we, I wanted to show one thing here. Let's go to that. I want to show you that. That's what I meant to lead with there. I forgot because I was groggy this morning. But let's start with that. Then we'll go to this other guy who's covering these same things with the victims. So I saw a car yesterday. I was driving, and there's a car with a Trump bumper sticker with McDonald's M. It wasn't. I don't think it was this exact one, but it had a McDonald's M where the Trump should be. Remember, Trump had an association with McDonald's, and there was this moment where you make America great again with the thing there. And so here's a MAGA with the McDonald's M. And so you're taking 2 things that are bad for you, Trump and McDonald's food. Like everyone should know McDonald's food is fucking poison. Like all these fast foods are fucking poison. They should kill you. Like it's been out for a while. They use the worst kind of, they use chemicals. Here's Trump in the drive-through. Remember all that stuff? The Trump, here he is as Pope. But I'm thinking about this person who's proudly saying, I'm a dumb fuck. I stuffed my ghoul hole with poison, and I vote for a guy that's obviously a piece of shit, right? There's a Trump Vance with the McDonald's M. Like, both things are horrible. It's like an embarrassment. They want to wear it as a fucking symbol of pride. And, this stuff, Mac Daddy here, that it should be fairly easy to see through this, but people can't even see what they do themselves, right? Like, why do people eat poisonous food? I mean, McDonald's food is okay. They make it so it tastes good, but it tastes fucking gross. I hadn't eaten I was a vegetarian for like 18 years. It was kind of part of the Sajmarg meditation. And my family and I started eating meat. And we eat meat in India. And we came back and we were living in Vegas, basically. And there was a McDonald's across the street. We came back, we were staying in an apartment building. And I took my kids to McDonald's just so they could have it, like, whatever. And I ordered a Big Mac, like I was a fucking, and it was gross, I'm like, this isn't food. Like I've eaten things that I used to eat when I was a kid, like food just once in a while. and it's just always like, oh my God, it's horrible, right? And when you start eating healthy foods and you stop eating poison, and you get older and you get more sophisticated in some way, your palate or whatever, it's hard for you to go back and eat this poisonous bullshit. Like, it's not food. You can just tell. It's like, this is gross. No matter how they dress it up and how addictive they make it or whatever it is. And the data's out on McDonald's, right? Everyone knows it's fucking poison. It's bad for you. All this stuff, all this fast food. And people know it causes cancer and obesity and all these other things. They eat it anyway, right? And so, it's this self-destructive behaviors that people have. And deep down, everyone knows Trump's a piece of shit. Like, they know he's not a fucking good guy and a spiritual person and he's not a reincarnation of Jesus. He's not any of these things. He's a piece of shit. They know it. How could they not, right? How could they think this guy is some great guy? I mean, he says horrible things. He's an asshole. And he's not a good, asshole. He's got a good heart, but just has a little gruff personality. He's a person that's just really narcissistic and brags fucking constantly. It's all about him and how much he brags. And, that's okay to be like that? You think that makes a good leader? Somebody that makes everything about himself? How, fucking sensitive he is? And so, they know. And they know kind of what's going on with them, but they don't want to admit it. But it's all about subjectivity, right? The way people lie to themselves. So, let's go to Ari Mibla.
The new letters coming out from the victims of sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who are concerned in a different way than so many people who view this case as a political controversy or online content or many of the other ways that it has mushroomed. These are the people who lived through it, the victims and their families. And they say the Trump Justice Department is putting convicted pedophiles and sex traffickers above the victims. We're going to start right here, and I'm just going to read to you what they're saying. Quote, I feel like the DOJ and FBI priority is protecting the third party, the wealthy men, focusing on scrubbing their names off the files. That's a reference to the reporting about the benefits Donald Trump himself and others may
We already saw this, but I'm going to let it play out.
Gotten, of which the victims know who they are. They continue, quote, to learn that our own president has utilized thousands of agents to protect his identity. And these high-profile individuals is monumentally mind-blowing. That's their focus. Wow. The reports are how...
So here's a victim. Here's the people. You're upset about this. You're a right-wing Republican, right? And so it bothers you. The Pizzagate, all these things bothered you. Victimization, pedophiles, rich pedophiles who get away with everything. These people are like lords and kings and the aristocracy, the royal people. And it bothers you. And you want these people to have justice. And so here's a victim speaking out. And, you're anti-elite. Trump's pro-elite and anti-victim. Trump's always been pro-elite and anti-victim, right? What was Trump's first thing when he heard about this? When he came out, the first thing he said. Trump said that there's a lot of, this is a hoax and that there's a lot of basically disinformation in there. And a lot of innocent people will get hurt or whatever it is. Not victims, but people like him that are going to be falsely accused. This was a hoax, and there's a lot of disinfo in there. He just, he knew his name was in there all along. And so he's concerned with himself and other people like him. That's who Trump identifies with. That's who Trump is as a person. And so he's not pro-victim. He's not anti-elite. He's pro-elite. He's pro-victimizing elite, right? He's pro-abusive elite. He's always been on the elite side in any of these circumstances. Because those are his buddies. Those are his people. That's who he cares about. And so, these people are these victims are saying this. And they should have more say because everyone else is just a voyeur. You're just a watcher of this thing. You're just a person sitting at home watching something that, whatever way it bothers you or not, whatever way you care about it, it didn't affect you. You didn't suffer at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. These are the young ladies who suffered and have traumatized by this situation. If any of this story is real, then they're real victims who really suffered, and they get more of a say in how this plays out because everyone else is just it's part of the show. It's part of a show of people you don't know have never met, and deep down don't really care about. And so what they say should go, right? Like they should be the ones that drive the process. They should be driving Pam Bondi. They should be driving the media. Not in the way that the media is exploiting them right now, because they're talking shit about Trump. And this hurts Trump, so they're going to cover the victims. Like this guy, Ira Miebler, could have covered the victims for years. And, they always say, I mean, they always come out with this line, just because you're on the list doesn't mean you're guilty. It's the same thing that Trump said. You're fucked. If you're on the list, you're fucked. You hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, you're fucked. It's just that simple. And maybe you're a good person, but the majority of people aren't. If you're not guilty of that, you're guilty of something, because Jeffrey Epstein didn't hang out with nice people or good people. He didn't hang out with the fucking, all these people are power hungry fucking, fame whores, and they're all fucking shitty people on some level. And they're not going to be, most of them won't see a day in jail, whether they partook or not of his fucking, his being a pimp of, a pimp of underage girls. Most of these people are not going to suffer any sort of jail time other than some public embarrassment. That's all they're going to suffer. And it's embarrassing. If you hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, you went to his island, you should be kind of embarrassed, right? Not kind of, you should be embarrassed. I mean, you should feel embarrassed, and you should be humiliated in public. Just because you're a part of it, right? You're like, this is the kind of thing where, people, remember the movie The Accused with Jodie Foster? She was raped, and guys were cheering on the rapists. They didn't rape, but they were watching it happen and cheering on, and they went after them, which in real life wouldn't happen, but they went after those guys who were cheering it on, who let something happen that was criminal. And this, would send a message to the so-called elite that not only are the people who are doing the shit, being held somewhat accountable, that everyone else is too. That you should be embarrassed, publicly at very least. And it would make people not go along with this kind of dark fucking evil shit that happens, right? But, it's not. Like, they're not going to do that because money and power always wins. So it wasn't Larry King, it was this interview. Let me show you these clips of Trump. And this all show you that Trump is for the elite, right?
Do you think he could have gotten away with a complete mea culpa in January when he decided to cover it up? Do you think at that moment he could have said, I'm going to throw all my money on the table, the American people like me, they're going to buy this?
Well, I think he probably couldn't do any worse. I don't think he could do worse. I think his lawyers, and in particular the lawyer...
So this is talking about getting away with something, right? So Bill Clinton cheated on his wife in the White House with an 18-year-old intern, right? So this is the official story. Monica Lewinsky was an 18-year-old girl, so barely legal. And he had sex with her in the Oval Office, which is considered sacred by many people. And this is back, in the 80s or whatever it was, that this stuff wasn't okay, right? So Trump has banged a porn star. I mean, and then paid her off, and it doesn't matter. Trump has said he can grab women by the pussy, and he still got elected. Now, there was Democrats and people were outraged, but that would never have happened. Bill Clinton or anybody had said back then that celebrities could just have this privilege of walking up to women and grabbing by the pussy. They would fucking be, that would be it. They would be done. Like, there was just no tolerance for anything like that. That wouldn't even be played. Like, it was too, gross. And Trump would later come back out and say, unfortunately or fortunately, that is the case. When he was being deposed, he was in a deposition, that he believed that was, unfortunately or fortunately, that's just the way it is, right? So, but here he is, they're talking about how Bill Clinton could get out of this. Instead of saying, yeah, we have to have standards. This is just a dead deal, a done deal. Bill Clinton should be gone. Like, we should not tolerate this behavior. He has crossed a line that should forever. You don't bang an 18-year-old girl who's not your wife in the White House. Like, that's just something you don't do. Not just because of the sacredness of the presidency, of the office of the presidency, because what it said to young kids and what it said about our morality, right? So, he should have just been done. But the fact that Bill Clinton wasn't, he got away with it, Trump and everybody else watch this, just like everybody sees Trump getting away with stuff. And they're like, all right, this is what we can do. Like, we the American people aren't going to fucking hold us accountable. Let's just steal the shit. Let's, like, steal them fucking blind, right? If you're not going to, these guys are all criminals. And if you're not going to stand up to them, they're going to fucking bully you and take your shit, right? Because they know that you're not going to do anything about it. They're not people who have some, moral compass, right? So this is him showing that.
Won't even mention names, but representing him with respect to Paula Jones, I thought did a terrible job.
Right.
He should have never been there. He should have never gotten in there. I mean, what Bennett did in that case was, I think he just did a terrible job.
You would have settled.
Well, I would have done something certainly different than what they did. I mean, that all started it. Paula Jones is a loser, but the fact
Paula Jones is a loser, right? So Paula Jones accused Bill Clinton of rape, and for right-wing people, they all were on Paula Jones' side. I mean, there's that woman Juanita Broderick who allegedly, I don't know if it's her, but they say it's her. She's got a check mark, but she tweets for Trump on a daily basis. Like every third day, I get a Juanita Broderick fucking quote, something pro-Trump, and she's not backing down from being pro-Trump right now, and yet she was, with Paula Jones, they were together. Like she wouldn't call Paula Jones a loser. She would call her somebody that was, one of her fellow accusers of Bill Clinton. Paula Jones is a loser. Well, that's how Trump feels about women. They're there to be victimized. And they're sex slaves. That's why he liked Jeffrey Epstein, and so did Bill Clinton. This was their view. They're there to service great, powerful men. And they shouldn't fucking whine about, abuse and shit like that. Because he's pro-elite and anti-victim. Right? Paula Jones is a loser.
Different than what they did. I mean, that all started it. Paula Jones is a loser, but the fact is that she may be responsible for bringing down a president indirectly. And, that statement was a bad statement to have been made, and it's proven to be false. So,
which statement was that? I'm sorry.
This Paula Jones in the deposition,
right,
which really started this.
Well, he denied it, which is if you're in a hole, stop digging.
Well,
is there a certain point where you have to just sort of walk away from the deal and say, I'm not dealing here anymore, I'm going to drop this line?
Well, I think his little speech afterward was a disaster. It wasn't the right tone, and I'm not sure he should have done it. And I'm not even sure that he shouldn't have just gone in and taken the Fifth Amendment and said, look,
so he's guilty, right? Like taking the Fifth Amendment. Like if Jeffrey Epstein took the Fifth Amendment when asked if him and Trump was there when he was abusing girls. And Jeffrey Epstein took the Fifth. I got some fucking comments from Trumper when I covered this before. I showed Jeffrey Epstein saying, he took the Fifth Amendment when asked about Trump. Let me see if I can find that video next.
I don't get along with this man, Starr. He's after me. He's a Republican. He's this, he's that. And, just taking the Fifth Amendment. It's a terrible thing for a president to take the Fifth Amendment, but he probably should have done it.
Because he's guilty. So he's trying to find ways. This is like Chris Matthews is asking Trump, how would he have handled this scandal? So you've banged a girl that's 18 years old in the White House. How would you handle this scandal? And Trump's like, yeah, these guys played it all wrong. Like, this is criminal talk. It's what criminals would say, right? Like, how can we get away with it? Well, what's the best way to get away with this? We've been caught doing something wrong. How can we handle this better? I don't know, take the Fifth, this loser, or, this stuff, that victim's a loser, all these things, right? Because that's how Trump feels, right? Trump is a part of this fucking mindset, a criminal mindset. He's a part of the elite. And these people are there to service you. And if one of your plebes, one of your pawns, one of your fucking slaves speaks out about your abuse, how do you handle it? Like, how dare they fucking do that to such a great man? Don't they know I have pussy privilege? I could just go grab by the pussy? I'm Trump. I'm Donald Trump. I'm not some fucking normal guy. That he said in that other, that, he had the right on Howard Stern. Let me show you those clips here. So this is Trump's E. Jean Carroll testimony.
Access Hollywood tape, which Trump watched during his deposition.
I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even know it. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Trump has dismissed that as locker room talk. But in his deposition, he went further.
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the
Well, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
Like, why would it be fortunate? You know, that, what are you saying, what would be fortunate about that? That as a star, you could just walk up to any woman. And the majority of women, it's not true. Like, there are women who want to be around stars and celebrities. There's women who would be shocked and would be traumatized and unable to tell you what a piece of shit you are. And they would feel violated. They go into a state of shock. But that's kind of what he gets off on, right? And so, you know, just because you get away with it doesn't mean that this is a fucking privilege. Because the majority of women, they would, like, what percentage you think would be okay with Trump just walking up to him, this is back whatever, like he was on The Apprentice, and grabbing him by the pussy? Like, maybe the people who are around him, there's a higher percentage of that because they're, you know, they want the advantages of having a relationship with Trump, you know, prostituting themselves like fucking hoes. But, you know, very few, right? And so he's saying that historically, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. I don't know, you know, like that's what he's saying. And that these women who complain about it, don't you know it's the way it is, right? Don't you know that's just how it is? And so, brutal, like brutal fucking stuff. I mean, just like he's a horrible fucking person.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
So holy shit, right? Like, he didn't say, oh, yeah, that was just, like, he called it locker room talk and all these things. But he was saying, yeah, I'm just telling the truth. Like, that's just how it is. I have a star. That's my pussy privilege. I could just go up and, you know, fucking, I mean, that's what Trump was fucking saying, right? And, like, thinking that way. Because I don't know any woman, I've never experienced any woman in my life that would be okay with Trump just doing that. Right? Do you? Like, how many women do you know in your life? Maybe like one or two? You know, like you have a... But even, you know, I mean, like you can't even, like, do that shit if you're like at a strip club. They beat the shit out of you if you touch the strippers. I mean, if you just touch their leg and shit, they throw you out. You're not supposed to touch the strippers, like this kind of thing, right? Like all these kind of degraded fucking places and stuff. Like even prostitutes, if you haven't paid them. Like, I mean, you know, it would be a rare person that would be just okay with. And, you know, and you have to look at it like grabbing you by, you know, your male genitalia. It would be okay if like a gay dude come up and grabbed you, like a famous gay dude. Just grab, like, would Trump be okay with that, right? Or some go grabbing his sons. You know, one of these famous gay guys went up and grabbed Barron Trump's junk, right? Would Trump be okay with that, right? You know, like it's just, and it's far less invasive. I mean, it's still uncool and gross and bad, but it's far less invasive than doing that to a woman who's more vulnerable physically and a totally different, you know, dynamic. And so, you know, this is what Trump believes.
Donald Trump loves a beauty pageant. And by his own admission, he was no stranger backstage while owning parts of 3 different pageants for nearly 2 decades.
You know, they're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
In 2001,
I sort of get away with things like that. Right? I sort of? No, you do get away with it. So why?
Tasha Dixon was Miss Arizona, competing in the Miss USA pageant. She experienced this kind of awkward moment firsthand.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked changing into our bikinis.
Dixon was 18 at the time and says watching...
So 18. So Jeffrey Epstein likes him young. That's what Trump's quote was. And Trump likes them young. So if Trump liked 18 girls, then how old was Jeffrey Epstein in that 2002 quote? How old is the girls that Jeffrey Epstein likes, right?
Trump storm into a dressing room was shocking.
To have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position, and then to have the pressure of the the people that work for him telling us to go fawn all over him, go walk up to him, talk to him, get his attention. Who do you complain to? He owns the pageant. So there's no one to complain to. Everyone there works for him.
In 2005, 4 years later, Donald Trump bragged to Howard Stern about what he could get away with since he owned the pageants. The conversation uncovered by CNN's K-File.
I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it.
You're like a doctor.
I'm inspecting it like a doctor. You're not a fucking doctor. And so, these girls don't have any rights. They don't have any choice in the matter, right? That he thinks that he can just go in there and look at them naked. Again, as a parent, if you were a parent and your daughter, of course, these things are all very greasy, these fucking pageants, right? But, he's going in there as a predator. He's not inspecting them, right? Remember, that guy said that they make them stand on stage, even the teens. And this guy who worked for Trump, and he was a handler of talent. And he came out and started talking about Trump being like sniffing Adderall and all these other things. I covered that guy. But he said this guy, Trump inspected the girls. And so Trump is inspecting the girls in their dressing room. Like they're going to be in bikinis. And why do you have to inspect them? They've won their state pageants. You don't have to inspect them. Fuck you talking about? I have to inspect them, right? Like, they're not inspecting shit, right? They're fucking...
I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it.
You're like a
Everything is
doctor.
good.
Later in that same show, Trump is asked if he'd ever had sex with Miss USA or Miss Universe contestants.
Never comment on things like that.
Give us the first letter of the country you had sex with.
How many letters are there?
This comes just weeks after Hillary Clinton brought up Trump's attack.
Okay, so this all was there. And they elected him anyway. Like, it was just obvious. Like, what he's thinking that as a rich, powerful man, as the owner of a pageant, and these guys like Bill Clinton, the women should just submit to them because they don't have any choice in the matter. There's no consensual type of situation. And they can just force themselves on him. And this is stuff that's said over and over about Trump. He would lord over the girls in these situations. And, this is, it's just his personality, right? And all these people who, think that Trump, they're deluding themselves, thinking that Trump would stand up for the little guy. When Trump crushed vendors and people he had deals with, he'd break the deal, wouldn't pay his vendors. He would bully people and force himself on them. And they were lesser than him. They were just his slaves, these people without their own, they're just NPCs, non-character players. Like he thinks everyone else is an NPC. That's how narcissistic he is, right? So to think that Trump would ever stand up for victims when he's always been on the side of the victimizer and the elite, people and the corporations, he's always on Monsanto's side. He's always on the evil side of things. He has been his whole fucking life. And then this guy.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
That's the way he said that he socialized with Donald Trump. The first part was he said that he socialized with him. So he's taking the 5th on this situation. So, he's saying that within the confines, if he answers that question, he would incriminate himself, right? So that's fucked, right? If you're being asked those questions about something like that, you're saying that if I answer that question, I'm going to incriminate myself. So he's therefore saying that yes, he did spend time with Donald Trump, with these young girls, and socialize with them, which he did. Like, he fucking did that. It's happened, right? Donald Trump was inspecting 18-year-old girls who, without their permission, and maybe even younger, because he also owned the Miss Teen pageant, would be 16, 17-year-old girls. And he's walking their dressing rooms. Imagine the fucking gall to walk into a female dressing room without any shame and embarrassment, and fucking feeling like, like totally inappropriate about that, not feeling like icky feeling in your stomach, that he would like it. He would get off on it. I'm the owner of the pageant. I'm going to go inspect these girls. But fucking, and he got away with it, right? So, what does that tell him? Well, you can just go up and do things like that, right? Grab him by the pussy. So, that's who Trump is. He is a fucking pro-elite, anti-victim person. Okay, so I found that this comment was from a while ago when I presented this thing you just saw, right? The whole Epstein thing. And the person, this was a video entitled, when Trump were perv bros, Jeffrey Epstein and Trump were perv bros. I like some of your content, but you're being a little disingenuous. When Jeffrey Epstein asked if he and Trump had ever socialized with young women, and he pleaded the fifth, he knew the question was being framed to be used against him and incriminate him with Trump. The word socialize is defined as mingling or conversating or gathering, as a completely different meaning than saying something like intercourse. You don't know what Jeffrey Epstein meant, so don't tell me I'm being disingenuous, right? I'm not saying that it necessarily meant they were having sex, right? But of course it didn't. Like, nobody was saying that. But socialize would mean that Trump was around these young girls. And so Trump wasn't, like, let's say you're 50 and 60-year-old men, whatever they were back then. Like, Trump was 50, late 40s, 50s, 60s, hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Trump was in his 44 in 1990, so he would be 50s and early 60s. So old fucking men. Why would old men be socializing with underage girls? I mean, fucking, that in itself is incriminating. You think that Trump would be socializing with these girls with not the idea of them being sexual objects? You think Trump just liked to have conversations? Him and Jeffrey Epstein would just like to sit down and talk to 15-year-old girls and find out what their worldview is and ask them about business plans and you know, any number of topics. You ever had a conversation with a 15 or 16-year-old when you're in your 40s or 50s? You think you just randomly talk to kids that age? It was just, and why not boys then? Why just girls, right? You know, so, I mean, it's a fucking, let me read the rest of the comment here. You're being a little disingenuous. When Jeffrey Epstein was asked if he and Trump had socialized with young girls, and he pleaded the fifth, he knew that the question wasn't being framed to be used against him, incriminate him and Trump. You know, you're talking like a fucking criminal. You're saying I'm being disingenuous. If Trump was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and young girls, then Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein was banging young girls, right? I mean, he's at least complicit. But Trump himself was walking in on these, you know, the evidence is overwhelming against Trump. Like the denial of these motherfuckers, right? The word socialize is defined as mingling or conversing or gathering. It's a completely different meaning than saying something like intercourse. Yeah, but I mean, if you're hanging out with 14-year-old girls and Jeffrey Epstein is known for banging them, like you're just, you know, I mean, what evidence do you need that Trump, I mean, he says he could just go up and grab women by the pussy, and he hung out with Jeffrey Epstein and said that Jeffrey Epstein liked young girls, and Trump was going into Miss Teen USA and Miss USA pageant with their 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old girls half naked because he got to inspect them. And you think this guy's fucking innocent? Like, what the fuck you talking about, right? Like, it's just the level of their fucking stupidity and their denial. Everyone has socialized with underage people numerous times in their life. It does not mean that they have something disgusting or illegal with them. You mean your kids? Or through work? Like, you know, we're talking about two 50, 60-year-old men hanging out in a fucking casino, you know, one of Trump's clubs, Trump's club or whatever it was, or Jeffrey Epstein's fucking office or island or airplane with 15 or 16-year-old girls. That's like not fucking socializing with your, you know, going over your friend's house who has some kids and you say, hi, how are you? What's going on with your school? Like, it's, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein and Trump being alone with 15, 16-year-old girls, right? Doesn't mean something disgusting or illegal with them. I'm not saying he is innocent or guilty because I really don't know. I only have my own opinions. He's fucking guilty, right? You not factually because you can't get the facts, but he's fucking guilty. Like, Trump is fucking guilty. He said he could walk up and grab women by the pussy. He said that he's attracted to his daughter. There's all these pictures of him being creepy with young women. Investigate for a crime in a court of law. Anything you can say will and can be used against you. Also, everyone's so focused on the fact that Jeffrey Epstein associates are diddlers. I tend to think that this way more complex and dark than that. Yeah, well, Trump is a part of it. Like, he is there with him. And you know he's fucking guilty. You just won't admit it, right? You're being disingenuous. Like, you're trying to fucking figure out a way he's innocent. There's no fucking excuse for any of the shit that Trump did. Like, it's just, like, this is how delusional these motherfuckers are. You're thinking that I'm being disingenuous because I, believe the evidence that's there in front of us. This is who Trump was. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein like women. Trump was quoted that Jeffrey Epstein liked young women. Trump didn't even have to participate with, he did, but he didn't even have to participate. He just had to know about it. He just had to know what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and that makes him complicit and a piece of shit, right? That he knew this guy was abusing young women. It says everything you would need to know that Trump was okay with that. Even if Trump was just okay with Jeffrey Epstein doing what he was doing, and Ghislaine Maxwell doing what she was doing. Like, he was okay with it. There's no way he wasn't aware of what they were doing and he wasn't okay with it. Because he's okay with that kind of behavior. He thinks elite people have privileges. Rich and famous, powerful people have privileges over other people. He says it all the time. Is every possible way he said it his entire life. And he thinks he can bully people and force them to bow to his will, which is another thing that he does. He's a bully, and this is how he acts. There's no this is not speculation. You have a, lifetime full of Trump displaying this shit with people just, right in front of their fucking faces. See, this is the people that, let me show you this other comment. This is to, Trump says Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre from him. An old video Trump's admits, and I fucking misspelled admits really badly. Anyways, Paul, you sound like a hater liberal. Are you on the side with Obama? Paul? Question mark? It's a space before the question mark. You don't even fucking punctuate shit, you moron. But, this is what they're, like, how much do you need before you realize you're wrong and you're completely wrong and duped and, like, everything you think and believe is a fucking lie about your belief system and what you think is, what you think are the, the good guys or not the good guys, and you enshrining Trump as some sort of a saint, right? When he clearly is a worthless piece of shit that fucking couldn't wait to take your money and walk on top of you and shit on you and, like, fucking look down on you because that's what he does. And just he tells you what you want to hear and you fucking believe it when all the evidence shows just the opposite, right? So the other thing about Trump's personality, I got one more thing to show you, 2 old clips. Or older clips. But this thing was from a couple days ago. So there's this Sydney Sweeney scandal where she is in some kind of commercial for jeans. Is it American Apparel, America, something like that. It's a stupid scandal. She seems like a kind of a dope. And she says, I have good genes, Genes, and it's crossed out. And then it says jeans, Jeans. And they're saying having good genes is because she looks like a little Nazi. And, it's a bogus scandal, probably fake, being put out by the liberals to provoke the right-wing attitude about it, right? But Trump is asked first about...
Good decision.
Mr. President, what is your relationship with Laura Loomer? What kind of influence with Laura Loomer? What kind of influence does she have in the White House?
I think she's very nice. I mean, I know she's known as a radical right. But I think Laura Loomer is a very nice person. I've known her for a long time. And, personally, I think she's a patriot.
She's a horrible person. Like, she's just gross. She's obnoxious. She's, she brings shame on the truth community by being a fake truther. She's Jewish and pro-Israel and anti-Palestinian, just fucking gross. And, right-wing, trying to be like a fucking one of those Trump truthers, but just a piece of shit. And obnoxious and gross, just fucking gross. But what is it that Trump likes about her? Well, I mean, they've been rumored to have some sort of sexual relationship, and they may or may not be true. But she loves Trump and supports him. So that's, that's the definition of why Trump likes somebody, that they like him. And this is the other piece here.
And she gets excited because of the fact that she's a patriot. And she doesn't like things going on that she thinks are bad for the country. I like her. Okay?
Mr. President, actress Sydney Sweeney had came out this weekend that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney. She's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yes.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay.
No, it's a fake scandal. American Apparel probably made that scandal happen because it's bringing so much attention to them. It's promoting that they're like, who's thinking about American Apparel jeans or whatever it is, right? But now they got national attention. So I think it's a fucking bullshit scandal. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say that there's some sense that there was some Nazi fucking hidden symbolism there. Trump wouldn't give a shit about any of that. All he cares about is, and he doesn't care about what the company is or stands for, is that Sydney Sweeney's a registered Republican and therefore liked Trump and voted for Trump. So that's another part of Trump, right? Like it's all about him and his people and the people that like him. Like, so, that kind of narcissism that you only like the people who like you. You only like the people who have, or not just like, but support or believe that they're good people. Like everyone who doesn't like you should just die or be locked up or whatever. They're just not, the only people that matter are the ones that like you, right? I mean, even if someone's neutral, but if they like him, holy shit, right? And he surrounds himself with those people who won't tell him the truth about his disastrous policies, and you can't run a government or anything like that, and anybody who likes Trump or butters him up, Trump will give them whatever they want. One more thing here, one more clip here, but just to finish up what I was saying there. See, to be a functioning person, to be a person on your spiritual journey, you have to question your own bullshit, right? You have to want to improve, and you need to have a way of receiving information to correct wrong thinking, wrong behaviors, accepting things that you're doing that are bad. Like you have to, there's people who sleep on a bed of nails, or people who, like that character Simon, I think his name was in Dan Brown movie, the whatever it was, the Mona Lisa movie, right? His original big book that came out, whatever that was called. I'll remember it in a second. The Da Vinci Code. And so there's a guy who whipped himself, self-flagellating. There's this element in spirituality where people think of themselves as a sinner. And it's not appropriate. But you can think of yourself as a potential demon. You have a part of you that wants to go full demon and go against the will of God and hijack your soul's purpose. And then you have your soul. It's like the saint, people have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And when you're making decisions, you realize that you have like some conscience that's telling you not to do something. You see this in pretty much every movie, every TV show. You see where people have a crisis of conscience, where they're about to make a decision about, what direction to take their life. And, they're battling with some demons or battling with whatever it is. And they're like, they, and we all do that. Like we all have to, we know what the right thing to do is, and it can be just like, all right, making good choices about food, like McDonald's food and things like this. Like we know things are bad for us. We know things are like fucking bring out the worst in us. We can hang out with good people. It's the difference of going to church or going to a strip club, or, not that I, endorse church. I talk about what organized religion is. So, maybe the strip club is a little bit more honest, but both are bad, in their way. But if you go to a good church where there's a good pastor and there's good energy, it's something different, right? There's no good strip clubs, right? There's no strip clubs that have a good energy. There's no porns that have, loving energy, right? It's all degraded, low vibrational shit. But religions themselves can do more damage and drive people to those things by not providing an accurate description of your relationship with God. And there's wanting, when you have a relationship with God, then you have, you're aware of your bullshit. You're aware of your negative tendencies. You're aware when you're doing something wrong. You have a conscience. You have morals. You have ethics. When you have an internal relationship with God, when you're meditating. and your bullshit is in front of you. You're like, yeah, I lied about that, or it's, this is not a good view. This is not good qualities that I have, and you have to be able to change. So Trump is the opposite of that, where he's only having yes people and people that are going to tell him how great he is, and when he gets negative feedback, he fires people and he dismisses it, denies it, right? When he gets faced with the truth, and you can't be a good person, a good leader, when that's the case. And so ultimately you become a demon, and that's what Trump is. Like, he's an ego run completely amok, and he's not connected to God in any real way, only doing work, as a demon in the role, a divine role that is, a demon that brings down America and, the world or whatever, of a demonic system. A demon who's so selfish that he brings down a demonic system, which is, a positive, a net positive, right? But still, he's not doing it purposefully.
If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these, would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole...
You don't want to affect people's lives, not the victims. You don't want to affect people who are like Trump, who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. There's a lot of funny stuff, and now it's calling it an out-and-out hoax that was created for the Democrats to go after him. Like, that's his view on it now, which nobody fucking agrees with him. Like, even his polling, like, Jesus Christ, that's what you're going with? And so, this was Trump's always his opinion of it. He knew his name was in it, and he knew his people, his peers, or people's name was in it. All these associates, and Jeffrey Epstein associated with so many different people. If all the names came out, you were like, oh man, like that's like a third of the famous people, right? A third of the famous people, really famous people, Jeffrey Epstein hung out with. And people from every walk of life that had influence, moneyed people, bankers, financial people, politicians, celebrities, just across the board. And so that's why they keep on saying, just because you're on the list doesn't mean you're guilty, but you're guilty of something. You're guilty of bad fucking decision making, right?
World. But I think I...
Go back a little bit here.
You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least...
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
So, that was that, right? We saw this. And so this is showing Trump that he's elitist. This is what Trump cares about. So let's get back to this a little bit. My videos now are a lot more about stupidity and denial. Denial is a big part of it. My intro about all these things. That there's a political solution, right? That all this stuff that you watch has no bearing on correcting or making better, bettering, making your system better or your life better. It's not about aligning with God's will. It's not about being natural or normal. It's not about being healthy. It's not about being honest or truthful. Politics is none of those things, right? And so there's a lot of denial and a lot of, wishful thinking and a lot of just stupidity and obliviousness. Stupidity is probably the wrong word. It's more going unconscious and just, willful ignorance of one's circumstances. And there's nothing more willful ignorant than Don Lemons. I was going to cover his latest take because that's always funny and always stupid, but I'm not going to do that today. I'll probably start off with that in the beginning of the next video or something. But I just want to show you a little bit more of this and then wrap this one up.
How Donald Trump famously put Epstein conspiracy theorists and other sort of podcasters in charge of the FBI.
But they're not conspiracy theorists if there's a massive conspiracy, right? Like Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, you're going to call people conspiracy theorists when Jeffrey Epstein got a deal in which he didn't serve real jail time. He had hundreds of victims, and client lists included a prince and a best friend of Donald Trump, who was the sitting president at the time, and then the defunct president under Biden, where still the intention was on Trump's, and then but then now again the president, and then Bill Clinton, who was a former president, and then all these other people that are associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein got no jail time in a deal in which not only he was free from prosecution, but all the people that he knew were also free from prosecution. And so that has to involve Mossad. It has to involve CIA. I mean, more so than Mossad. And Mossad probably as well, more so for him. But in terms of getting that kind of a deal, like he was an asset of the intelligence community. And whatever work he was doing, they didn't want all of his shit out there. And there's been a massive cover-up and a suicide that looks completely fake. And you're saying conspiracy theorists? What the fuck, bro? Right? I mean, it is weird that, what Trump did here in terms of bringing all these people in who said they were going to be, these were Epstein people, like Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Bonaccino, whatever, all those guys. He just made Judge Jeanine Pirro the judge of Washington, D.C. I mean, like, he just tires people off of fucking Fox News. And all these people that push for this, and now these liberals who never want to cover it, who always dismissed it, and now, like, it's totally reversed. It's hilarious.
And remember, the reporting is they spent a lot of time and energy going through the material. And while some of them may have said or claimed they wanted to do that to then release it, remember, nothing's been released. That's why he's accused of a cover-up. But we do have reporting that they also used that time to shield various names. So remember, if you're keeping track of what has been a sordid political story, a lot of the people who claim to care about this story for justice, to go after bad guys like Epstein and his conspirator Maxwell, are now aligned with a government that's doing the opposite, shielding people, giving more secrecy to Maxwell and of course, the deceased Epstein, because while he's gone, the information could still come out and matter to people. And on top of all that, the administration, going into the weekend, gave leniency to the only incarcerated conspirator. Now the issue's snowballing, and I want to show you a way that it has affected Donald Trump, who is, if nothing else, very conscious and sometimes skilled at PR. He understands the difference between noise and language, wherever it may be in our world, and things that go to the heart of his political base, which he has always kept an eye on. So imagine his concern when someone who's been outspoken in many venues, Charlemagne the God, he's a popular radio host, he interviewed Harris, he's taken on more of a political role over the years, although he's known...
I mean, just Charlemagne the God.
First and foremost as a New York music radio host, but he also has the show on Comedy Central. He's been on MSNBC. He is someone who goes and talks to all kinds of people. And that may be because a lot of people have seen his voice as important. Clearly Fox News and Donald Trump do, which is the story I'm telling you tonight, because he went on Fox talking to none other than Laura Trump. And so he is speaking with his reach, his credibility, but to the MAGA audience, making headlines, calling out what he sees as a Republican coup in the making over the Epstein issue, which led to a Trump backlash.
I think there's a political coup going on right now in the Republican Party that people aren't paying attention to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think that this Epstein thing is going to be a way for traditional conservatives to take their party back. This is the issue that has gotten the base riled up. The MAGA base isn't letting this issue go, and for the first time...
They make it sound like this guy's saying something fucking insightful. Right?
They know they can, probably take their party back and not piss off the MAGA base. I think they're going to do that.
That's Charlemagne's take. As for who's getting pissed off, well, the president certainly was. He wrote a lengthy diatribe with plenty of personal attacks, going after Charlemagne, calling him names, saying he doesn't know anything about Trump. But the problem goes deeper than just...
Okay, let me go find that. Because who needs to listen to this piece of shit? Read the fucking tweet. Like, that's going to be an epic tweet. Donald J. Trump, this is True Social. The very wonderful and talented Laura Trump, whose show is a big rating success, puts racist sleazebag Charlemagne the God. Why is he allowed to use the word God when describing himself? Like, is that something that you wish you could do? Right? How can he could do that and I can't? Right? Donald Trump, the God. Can anyone imagine the uproar there would be if I used that nickname? I didn't even know that was. Which shows that you want to use it, right? I mean, the difference is that guy is a radio toast, and I mean, not somebody anybody's taken seriously, and you're fucking running for president. So it'd be a big difference, right? Like, you can't say, but he, of course, wants to do that. He's a low IQ individual, has no idea what words are coming out of his mouth. Well, I think he does, because it sounded like he articulated his point fairly well, right? It's not his concept isn't something new. I mean, it's like a bare basic concept that the Republicans, like everybody who knows anything about politics, know that the majority of Republicans and the Republican establishment are not into Trump because Trump himself called him the Rhino Republicans, Republicans in name only. And Trump is always hammering those Republicans. And that those Republicans were shell-shocked with Donald Trump's fucking rise to fame, including Jeb Bush and fucking all those other pieces of shit. Remember, all these guys hated Trump. So I showed you this video before. So Trump gave out Lindsey Graham's personal number because Lindsey Graham used to hit Donald Trump up for money. And Lindsey Graham talked some shit about Trump, so Trump gave out his personal number. And Lindsey Graham's response was to take a variety of cell phones and stick one in a blender and hit one with a fucking golf club and drop one off a building, like all these, whatever it was, to destroy his cell phone. Like, that was his response. It was the stupidest fucking thing ever. And Lindsey Graham hated Trump, and now he's a Trump taint licker. Marco Rubio got into it with Trump about his hand size, and he called him Little Marco. Remember? Ted Cruz went after him, and they're all Trump taint lickers. Like, nobody liked the guy, and nobody could believe he just came in and was fucking setting the party afire. So everyone knows that. So Charlemagne the God is not talking out of turn here because Trump called them Rhino Republicans. And there was a hijacking of the Republican Party. And most of the Republicans, including Fox News, were looking for a way to fucking end Trump. They have been. And they did with the deal that they made to get Biden in. But Trump just kept on fucking hanging around. And they all had to knuckle under to him, even more so now. And so, do you think that those Republicans are wanting to take their party back? Sure, everybody knows it. And does this look like an opportunity? Yes. It's not brilliant, but it's a coherent take. He's a low IQ individual, has no idea the words are coming out of his mouth, and knows nothing about me or what I've done, like just ending 5 wars, including 31-year bloodbath between Republic of Congo and Rwanda, where 7 million people died, and there's no end in sight. He didn't know that, or India, Pakistan, or wiping out Iran's nuclear capabilities, or closing the horrendous open border, or creating the greatest economy where prices and inflation have come way down, and where stupid and corrupt Joe Biden set the record for doing the worst job as president ever. But this dope, Charlemagne, would vote for Sleepy Joe or Kamala. Remember, 1 year ago, a country was dead, and now the hottest country anywhere in the world, MAGA. But that doesn't address the fact that fucking MAGA people, and many of them celebrities, many of them like popular people that, you used to have phone conversations with, like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and fucking Candace Owens. And so, all these people. And you're out there doing what, right? You're out there saying like fucking all this other bullshit, like address the issue. MAGA is now weakened, but he knows it and everybody knows it. And the Republicans are always looking for a chance to see a weakened Trump. And if that happens, they'll totally go in for the kill. And so, anyways, let me wrap this one up here. But it's just everything that I've said. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.